Eku Oshe Oya Shango. Um, may we always act in an elevated manner, right? So may we never do things to get ourselves into trouble, like Shango. And may we always see things from another perspective, like the winds of Oya. So, um, I would like to, speak about knowledge versus wisdom. And so, how we acquire one and how it transforms into another. So, knowledge, of course, is like, of course, those, we learn the ABCs, we learn how to do things, we um, remember, right? So, we remember how to count, we remember how to we remember our ABCs. We learn these other things, right? We acquire knowledge, right? We scroll the internet. We make a Google search, right? We do all these things, right, to gain knowledge. So how is it that we can test the knowledge for its truthfulness? What thing do we do, right, to test the validity of the thing that we've learned? We try to apply it, right? And this is where we learn wisdom. So, as a person coming into Ifa, as someone with Isefa or some of these other, initiations with Itefa and these Baba Larisha or Ia Larisha initiations, right? There's things along the way that are opened up to us. There's this knowledge that we learn, and over time we implement the knowledge and gain wisdom. Casting the Ifa, offering the sacrifice, listening to the things that Ifa says, being patient, right? Not getting into fights and these things, right? So, with some of those things that Ifa tells us, it is important that we understand how to apply them. Even though you may receive the knowledge of not arguing or not fighting, applying it, right, and being able to use what you learn wisely, right, helps us to move into wisdom. Ifa tells us in a couple of Odus, right, what the outcome is, right? One, how we're supposed to act. What character traits do we exemplify, right? It tells us in Ogbedi, right? Ogbedi says privilege is for the person who calls someone. The person who calls someone has no such privilege. Ifa's message to Erin: when going to serve under the antelope, he was advised to offer a bow. He complied. We barely noticed Erin. When did you become a mountain? So, like in this Odu, Ifa, the elephant as a baby goes to the antelope to learn Ifa. As the elephant grows, right, it learns Ifa, as it learns the knowledge, it applies it, right? So we know elephants never forget anything. With the knowledge that the elephant learned from the antelope, the elephant can now grow, right, to even overshadow the antelope. We know that literally the elephant will grow to be a lot bigger than the antelope. This is the point, right? So privilege, right, is for the one who calls someone. So in order for us to exercise that privilege, we have to have someone, right, that has the knowledge, that has proving the wisdom, right? That's the correct use of the knowledge. In this instance, in Ogbedi, it talks about the elephant going to learn or serve under the antelope. The antelope was the one who had the knowledge. They gave it to the elephant. The elephant applied the knowledge, changed it or transformed it into wisdom, and became bigger, larger than life. Undeniable, unmistakable, the prowess of the elephant. Strength and grace. These are some of the attributes, right, that we must exemplify, right, with Ifa. Right? There's time to gain the knowledge. We must focus on gaining the knowledge. Right? There's ways that we can gain the knowledge, right? We can gain the knowledge through study. We can gain the knowledge through class, through the ear, right? There's different ways that if I say we can gain the knowledge. We can gain the knowledge, right, by doing the know-how. But knowing how and when to use your knowledge is the thing that brings wisdom. So, when we do these things, what does Ifa say happens next? Ifa says that we will not only be called upon to show our knowledge, that when we reach a certain point, we will be called on because of our wisdom, the implementation of the knowledge, the things that we've learned. It tells us in the Odu, Osa, Bara, Osa on the right, no, Bara on the left. Osa, Ba, Obara, Ba. These were the Awo who cast Ifa for Orunmila, the one whose family would call on him 20 times. Osa, Ba, Obara, Ba. These were the ones who called on Orunmila 30 times. Behold, my family calls on me 20 times. Osa Ba, Abara Ba, my family is calling on me 30 times. So, in order for others to call on, right, we've seen it in Ogbedi, right? It is the privilege is for the one who calls someone. The one who is called has no such privilege. With the knowledge and the wisdom, right, there's an obligation to answer the call. There's an obligation for support. So what happens is if we don't give the right support, right, if we're being called upon and we haven't gained the knowledge, if we called upon and we haven't developed the wisdom, where does that put us? Where does that put us in the one who called? Who will we call on? Will we exercise that privilege? Do we have elders in place that will assist us? Do we have a place that we can go and get the knowledge? If I ask us to move carefully, to learn the things we need to learn, to do the things we need to do, to acquire the knowledge. So it is possible, right? Some have the knowledge but can't apply it. It happens all the time, right? We say it like, you know, if sometimes common sense isn't so common, right? Sometimes the things that we know, right, sometimes the things we think we know are not the truth, right? There's mistakes. So what do, right? We should always be in the pursuit of knowledge, right? There's different ways, right, to do things, but there's the right way as well. That's the only way. We have to learn. We have to learn before we become practitioners. Omawo are in a state of learning. Those with Isefa, right? Those doing their first Ifa reading, right? They're in the place of learning. These people should not be working for other people, right? There's people with full initiation that should not be doing work for other people. It's not just about the initiation. It's about the knowledge and wisdom being given, right? It's about having someone, right? Having the privilege of calling or being able to call on someone. And Ogbedi and Osabara, Orunmila was the one being called upon. I'm sorry. And Osabara, Orunmila was the one being called upon by his friends and family. Ogbedi explains to us the dynamic, right? Right? The expectations of that office, the expectations of that privilege, the expectation of that position. There's a lot of people out here to do a lot of different things, right? There's people that read with Cowrie. There's people that read with Opwele. There's people that read with Ekin. There's people that read with cards. There's people that read with shells. There's people that read with bones. It's a privilege to be able to call on these people, right? It's a privilege to be able to call on someone and receive certain insights, truths. But it's also a warning to those being called, right? You have a duty, right? You have a duty to give the truth. You have a duty, right, to bring peace and comfort and healing to people's lives. It's a duty. Anyone that calls upon you, right, it is, even though that person may be the one doing the consultation, they will be the one who receives the knowledge directly from you about these future events, these past events, these current events. So it's a privilege for them to call on you to get this information. They have the privilege. The one that's being called has the duty. We have a duty to give the best information, right? We have a duty to give the truth. We have a duty to be honest. We have a duty to have integrity. It's a duty. This is the thing, right, that makes it challenging for Babalawo and Iyanifa. Legitimate Babalawo and Iyanifa. Because if you don't know, you have to know. Being honest with oneself, right? Right? We don't have such luxury of dishonesty. You know? So before we do these things, right? Before we accept people's money, before we, offer a solution, let us make sure that we correct. Let's make sure that we're correct. Let us make sure that we can handle our responsibility. Let us make sure that we done in honesty and truthfulness, right? That we being honest with ourselves. We have to be honest with ourselves first before we can be honest with the client, with the Omoawo, with the family member. We'll constantly be looked to, called upon, right, to bring peace and comfort, to bring long life. It's very challenging, right? Some will feel like, oh, I'm never ready. I'm never ready. There's some things that we should be asking people, right? If you had Itefa, right? If you've had Oropwele, if you had, who's the Baba that you study under? right? These things, Babalaos and Nephilims are very visible people. There's nothing secretive about the initiation, right? These questions, right, should come easily. The answers should come more easily than the questions, readily. Let us all fulfill our obligations. Let us all fulfill our responsibilities. Before we start reading for people and doing their bows, let us make sure that we are knowledgeable. Let us make sure that we are doing things correctly. Ashe. So, there's we have a big responsibility, right? So we haven't even discussed about learning Yoruba, right? Having a clear understanding of the Odu Ifa, right? Being able to understand the interpretation or the different orientations of the Ifa. There's a lot that goes into it. It's not something you can pick up in 6 months. It's not something that you can pick up in a year. Even if you learn the rituals in that amount of time, right? That's the knowledge. Even if you can cast Ifa with Opwele, even if you can learn Ebo Riru and Akunlebo, right? That's the knowledge of the ritual. But what about the wisdom of the verse? What about the wisdom of the verse? What about coaching someone, guiding someone through this information? Being able to separate one person from another, right? Because one verse, right? Odu Ifa. Let's take Ogbe D for instance, right? And so I'll repeat the verse. I'll put the verse in the comments or whatever, right? But Ogbe D, privilege is for the person who calls someone. The person who is called has no such privilege. Ifa's message to Aaron, the elephant, when going to serve under Etu, the antelope. He was advised to offer a bow. He complied. We barely noticed Aaron. When did you become a mountain? So if we look at it, right, suppose the orientation is Ireaiku, right? Ireaiku says that even though the thing has longevity, there may be patience that's needed, right? It takes time for the elephant to go from a baby to an adult. So patience will be needed, right, for the elephant, right, because he would become big, a big person in this life. But patience is needed for the elephant, right, in order to attain that, because the elephant has to not only gain the knowledge, but practice it, or practice the wisdom, implement the wisdom, right? So what if the verse comes in Ayewo? What if the Odu Ifa Ogbedi comes in Ayewo? What does it say? Same verse, but looked at in a negative. How we apply that, right? It could be that the elephant went somewhere. The elephant is supposed to be this big person, but is being oppressed. The elephant may be lacking in money. The elephant may be involved in contention, right? The elephant may have an issue accepting its role at the time. These things are very important when we're talking about coaching someone through a process. Wisdom. Very easy to gain the knowledge. This is what the elephant went to the antelope for, to gain the knowledge. The elephant also went to learn how to use the knowledge in the best way, right? And apply it to wisdom, change it to wisdom. What will happen, right? Once the elephant learns wisdom, the elephant will be called upon, right, by friends and family, by the community, because of the knowledge and wisdom that was gained through the antelope. So what happens if the elephant is at odds with its destiny? What happens if the elephant is at odds with the process? What if the elephant refuses to learn? How would you use this verse in order to give the correct guidance? You can't do that just with initiation. It doesn't make you able to do this. It only gives you access to the knowledge. So, just like the elephant, let us offer a bull accordingly, right? Let us be patient. It is only a matter of time before we are big people in this life. That is undeniable. May we learn the things that we need to learn. May we apply the wisdom over time, so that just like Obaraba, they were the one who cast Ephah for Orunmila when his family would call on him on 20 occasions. Obaraba. It was the family who called on Orunmila 30 times. So it shows us that when we call upon, if we manage it well, if we not only able to apply the knowledge, we have the knowledge, but apply and show the wisdom, give the correct interpretations, right? Give the correct remedy, and have the appropriate outcome. These things take time to manifest. When we do this, we will continue to be called upon by the community. It will actually increase our visibility, right? Because we've earned it. Ashe. So, I'm Latona Ifabileke, Iadudu Temple number 1, or number 2. I don't know if it's number 1 or number 2, but Ilia Dingbe. We have Iadudu Temple here in Charlotte, North Carolina. And we also have another temple in Oshogbo. But Ilia Dingbe, both are Iadudu temples. So we're traditional Ifa temple, Royal Oshun lineage. You know, so we try to do things correctly, right? Based on our knowledge. Based on our knowledge. May we always learn the wisdom. The knowledge is easy. It's just applying it. Ashe.